So, Norman JN Lobb is a science fiction author specializing in near future techno thrillers, quantum systems gone rogue, and the collapse of digital civilization. With a passion for realistic, speculative tech, Norman crafts stories that fuse hard science with human emotion, creating rich, pulse pounding narratives that explore what it means to stay human in a world driven by code. His novel Awakening Protocol is the first in the Quantum Synchronicity OS series. So, Norman, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you on. Disclaimer: any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. I'm glad to have you on. And yeah, I'd love to know, we were chatting a bit before the show, but for the listener, I'd love to hear what got you into writing this kind of book that blends science fiction and messages around humanity. And I know you've written a few other books as well.
Well, I think that what inspired me, I guess, was that I'm actually working on the operating system that I mentioned in the book that becomes the center of the book. And then I have a computer language called quantum dialect. And what I'm trying to do in my spare time is to become one of the players in the quantum world with my operating system and my computer language that is called a polyglot language because it can speak to any of the other 21 languages that exist. That's the plan, is to have my operating system and my computer language dominate, just like Microsoft did, the quantum world, because it's a necessary tool for us to bridge the gap between what the computers that are on our desks today and quantum computers of tomorrow. So that's it. It's a hybrid system. And I'm just hoping at some point in time that in the next year or two, I will be able to do proof of concept. And so I wrote the books thinking that that was maybe the best advertising I could do. The code's going to be open source. The operating system yet to be seen as to how I deal with that. But right now we're working on that, and then some computer games to, I guess, talk about the book. The book and the game was invented in the book, and so I put it together in real time, and now it's online on Steam. So it's been an adventure. It's the reason I wrote 7 books is kind of funny to me, anyways. I have a friend that writes books, and he's written 6 of them. So when he showed me his 6th book, that's when I decided I was going to write books myself because I was so impressed with him. My friend, I said, okay, and I didn't want to write one book and then have him for the rest of his life say, yeah, but you only wrote 1. So I wrote 7 so I could have 1 more than him, believe it or not. That was my, but I never really thought I could write 7 books like that when I started. So it's been a bit of an adventure in that area.
Wow. I love that. I love that. The friendly rivalry with a friend as it started, but actually sounded like into a whole like creativity journey for you. And
well, my brother's a professional artist too.
hmm.
My older brother's a professional artist. He's a painter, and he's quite good. I compared to what I do, his work is spectacular, to be quite frank.
Wow. Wow. Cool. And yeah, an artist as well. Did you use his art for your book?
No, I asked him to do a cover. He hasn't gotten to that yet. But you could look him up. His last name the same, and his first name's Howard, and he's phenomenal, Johnny.
Oh wow. Howard
I
Lobb.
wished, yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so the books are a culmination of some tech stuff and some, like you say, humanity, because I think that we need to take a good look at why we're human, what it is we want to accomplish here. There's some awful evil forces out there right now, and they seem to be wanting to control every little bit of our lives. And I think that's problematic for most people, if not all people, at some point in time, with face recognition and voice recognition and cameras everywhere. I mean, you live in close to London or whatever, and London's the most photographed place in the world, right? And I think everywhere seems to be going in that area. Obviously, for some things, it's very good. For other things, not so good, right? I guess there's the yin and yang of this. You know, let's call it I guess, a state-sponsored. I don't know. Spying is there a better word? I'm not sure. You know, and I'm sure that most people don't even understand how many times they're photographed in a day. Like, and it's a big number everywhere you go. So, I'm hoping that at some point in time with the video trailers that it turns into like a Netflix movie series or something like that. That's why I'm crafting the videos in a certain manner to facilitate that, and hopefully people will look at that and read the books and then decide that that's something maybe they want to pursue.
Hmm. You've got a lot of I went looking at some of your books. There seems to be quite a lot of messages around human resilience and like challenges coming in at them. So it sounds like that's kind of like a big theme in your books.
Well, it is, and it's really something that you know we all face every day. Is just survival, even for the simplest things. Like, can you imagine if there's an EMP war? You know what that is? That's what the book's about, really. 111 years from now, we have an EMP war, and it knocks out what is essentially at that time quantum synchronicity running the internet, running the Internet of Things, cars, everything, airplanes. An EMP war would knock all the airplanes out of the sky. All the towers would die. All your phones would die. You'd have no water. You'd have no electricity. You'd never be able to phone the police or an ambulance because they couldn't phone you. They wouldn't. Everything would stop. We'd have houses. And obviously there'd be fires too, because uh, things that don't, rely on, for example, water, um, to survive. In other words, you got, let's say an EMP bomb goes off over top of a nuclear reactor. All its pumps shut down, and there's no way for them to start it. Right? That's sounding like that's a weapon that they're going to use. Another weapon that they're looking at using it is a carbon bomb. So the bomb goes off and it releases carbon into the atmosphere. And within 24 hours, everything electronic stops working in a 3-mile radius. The carbon gets onto the into the equipment. And so can you imagine breathing that? These are the things they're developing. So this is not something that, with the drones and everything else that we're going to escape. There has to be a reset at that level to stop this madness of accelerating the machines that kill people. Right? It's accelerating now. I see a future where one day there's going to be 3 or 4 ships will pull up outside a city like Vancouver, and they could be 100 miles away, and they could put 1,000 drones over the city of Vancouver. How are you going to stop that? Right? It could be anybody could do that. You don't have to be a country. You just have enough money to build the drones. So I don't know. It's and now then you got asymmetric warfare where things that used to work don't work anymore. So I don't know where we're going to go, Johnny. I hope it isn't continuing on this path that some sanity comes into our world, but it's spiraling the way I see it. The first video for my first book kind of spells out what I was kind of inspired to write about what I'm seeing uh, close to our country and across the border. It's it's quite something to see the cult, if I can call it that.
So you're kind of,
Anyways,
yeah,
at
you're,
the end of the seventh book in the series actually talks about the reset and what the rules of engagement should be, going forward in reality, if we're ever going to survive as a species. And that's where we're at right now, the way I feel it, because the people don't give a shit or don't really care about other people's lives. They don't understand that person, the people that they're in another country are going to work every day, supporting their family, trying to have a normal life. Not everybody's out there being, you know, bad for humanity. So why are you taking out the people that aren't bad for humanity? Right? It's something fundamentally wrong with that. And I'm sure most of the people on this planet will agree with that. I would hope. And if they don't agree with that, then they're the problem. Right? You know, I think like the first thing to die in a country, if it's empathy, you've got a problem. And I see people, so many people that lack that in their daily lives, let alone, you know, looking at people they don't even know and having an opinion they should never have, right? It's everywhere. And I hope it's somehow and then the internet doesn't help with the misinformation, and the campaigns of misinformation. I don't know how we're going to change that. God only knows, you know.
So some strong themes in your book and messages to really, yeah, help people sort of realize what you see is going on.
Well, I see it, and I look around, and I know there's a lot of other people that see it, but how do you address it, John? Right? How do you address it at the root level? I'm not sure. It reminds me of that rat, the guy that used to put a bunch of rats in a maze and feed them like great food all day long. In the end, they all ate each other, even though they had everything. Have you ever heard about that one? Oh, that's an interesting. So he did it. He didn't do it once. He did it like 20 times, and the outcome was always the same, right?
Psychology
Society, even the
experiment.
rat society breaks down at some given time when they have everything. So, I mean, we have everything on this planet for every person to live, right? There's nothing on this planet. There's no person on this planet that couldn't be supplied with everything they need to live if rich people didn't need so much, right? And if we didn't waste trillions of dollars on war, instead of sitting down in a meeting like this, doesn't matter. You don't have to be face to face and have that conversation, and two adults come to, or however many adults come to the correct solution, which is humanity. Forget about all the other stuff. You can't take any of that money with you, John. Right? Not a cent. At some point in time, if and if the people in power, I mean, even the Pope can't talk about peace without being attacked in the press. I'm not a Catholic, but I understand his message. His message is on point, right? And people are saying that he should stay out of politics. Gosh. Well, anyways, that's the other thing I see is Project 2025 in the U.S. and a couple of companies that are totally involved in that. What I consider to be a takeover of the U.S. government. Like, we don't know who's running the government there at this point in time, because it's a sight to behold in my eyes, anyways. What do you think about it?
No, there's certainly a lot going on in the world, and yeah, you've got a lot of like messages in here about, it seems like, about what humanity could be about, and how we can have well, I believe we can have more conversations and adult conversations, uh, like you said, as well. I'd love to know a little bit more about your game, though, Norm, that you mentioned.
So what the game is it's a board game, and it's meant to be an educational game, but at the same time a little bit of competition. So in the game, you end up to really to beat the AI, you have to answer the questions. That you land on a hex, and a question will come up. It'll be a multiple choice, and you get to choose the one answer in 3 seconds or in 12 seconds. Sorry, three answers. You get to choose one, and if you get it right, you survive. If you get it wrong, you lose a man. But at the end of the game, all the questions that you were asked, whether you answer them correctly or incorrectly, you get the answers. And say if your child's playing the game, and we have it for 3 levels: kids, teenagers, and then adults, and then easy, medium, hard, and then quantum. So really 7 settings. And we have 18 categories. You can choose like a math theme, you can choose science, you can choose geography, or you can do Jeopardy. But those are the questions that will be lying underneath the board. You don't see them until you land on one of the hex, and then you answer the question, and at the end you can email it to your parents, or your parents can, go and take a look at it, or you can play against your friends, and it's kind of a Jeopardy game. So I was trying to go after the educational side of it, but I realized that there's, people that like to play these kinds of games. So we're we're trying to get a market for that. To I hopefully it'll be in the schools at some point in time,
Hmm.
where the kids can play against each other and they can answer the questions. Say, and maybe at some point in time we'll even allow a teacher to put in, say, 25 or 50 questions for that day into the game that lies under the board, and then they're teaching their kids what they're trying to teach them in a different way, just different methodology, you know, lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sounds, yeah, quite good creative, like opportunity. Well, not creative, maybe a kind of yeah, educational but kind of fun opportunity for
Yeah,
um
that's what I'm hoping. So,
mm,
you know, we'll see how it goes, but it's been a fun adventure to get it to this point.
mm,
To say, yeah, we're going to do this, and then about 9 months ago we started this program, just me and one of my buddies, and I told him what we needed, and we went and we built it. And we'll see. Now we got a gaming company. So out of the books, a gaming company uh, was born.
wow. What's your I know there's many different views on like AI, whether it's like useful, whether it's like not so helpful for for people. What's your kind of like thought on AI in general?
Well, I see it as both good and bad. Good in a way that there's going to be discoveries through this process that we never considered, because all the data will be available. It'll be able to be searched. It'll be able to be prioritized, and the more data that ends up in the system will will increase that. But now the problem is accuracy, right? How do you know which data is accurate? So there's another issue with AI as well, is that in every 200 lines of code, there's a bug on average. So a bug in code is going to cause an unforeseen problem. One of the jobs that I used to have was a software tester for 3.5 years in one of the telecoms here in Canada. And I saw, a small error in code can cause a big error somewhere else, obviously. And so if we've got 1 trillion lines of code, let's say in a data set, or I don't know, let's say Amazon's or Google, whatever, that code has to make an error somewhere. And so if that code's being used, and it is, all the code's kind of the same as far as error rates. Some are more, some are less, but it's about the same. That's going to cause problems in the AI too, is because the code itself is incorrect. How can the output be correct? Right? And then the other thing is putting in biases, different operating, it might be one of the other 4 or 5 AI companies out there or whatever. And then they program their own bias into the answers. So then it becomes messaging as opposed to, the search for knowledge, let's say. I would prefer it to be as neutral as possible. But, the owners of these platforms tend to have, just like I do, an opinion about how the world's supposed to run. And so they're using their, let's say, soapbox to stand there and tell us what we should know. It's like, so they're able to rewrite history without the average person even understanding that history is being rewritten. That becomes the gospel, let's say, for lack of a better term. And so, yeah, it's going to be good in some areas, like I say, but it depends who's operating the switch, right? And so somehow we got to find a neutral person or a neutral organization that runs AI in a way that it's balanced. But I don't know. I really don't know if that's even remotely possible, given the situation we're in today. There are no rules. They're in the United States. They've basically stated there are no rules for AI. Excuse me. And I think that that's probably going to end up being a disaster. I think so, because now it's the wild, wild west of information. And we know that anyways, with the major companies being focused, 4 or 5 companies control a vast swath of information being disseminated, like just a few people. And before it used to be newspapers in every corner, or every community. And now big corporations, that's a messaging tool for it. And it would be good if we could go back in time and divide all that so that opinions from one area actually matter in the other area, that don't get drowned out by big data. It's a control mechanism at this point in time, right? And then if it's used in warfare, now we've got another issue. Well, what do you mean if it's used in warfare? When it's used in warfare, right? So anyways, I hope that, cooler, I guess, guys end up running this, because guys that are running it, the few of them that are running it at the highest level seem to have some issues with how they want the public to, I guess, be treated. It's disrespectful if their opinion means more than the rest of the opinion of the world. And so they put that bias into their data set, right? We know it's happening. It's not if, it is. It's interesting to ask AI questions like this. So I don't know if you've ever done that, is ask AI, are you biased? They come up with some pretty interesting answers. If you start to delve into that area of AI and actually ask AI itself what it thinks, you'll get a different view of what AI is capable of just by your prompt.
Interesting.
So do you use AI? No?
To some degree, yeah. Like not.
Yeah, I'll give you the number one tip that I've figured out. So when you want to prompt for something, you write what you want, and then you tell the AI to write your prompt, and then you use that prompt to get what you want out of AI.
Oh yeah.
Actually ask it to make your own prompt, like to use your prompt to make another prompt that it would use, and then it'll go and find a bunch of things that you never thought about, and it'll add it to that, but it adds context. So that's the one thing that I do when I use AI. I don't know if it's the best methodology, but it seems to work for me.
Help it
Right.
develop your own prompts. I think I've been shown that before in some kind of way with like ChatGPT or whatever. In that way. Norm, I'd love to know a little bit about your when you're like in the writing process. Obviously you've written loads and loads of books, quite a lot of books. Um, do you find like you can do long spells of writing, or do you have to? Are you a kind of author who has to do like sort of short spells?
So I met a couple of one guy in particular at an event, John C. Maxwell.
Hmm,
John C. Maxwell's written probably
80.
close to 100 books. Okay. So I asked him, I said, I asked him the same question. What's your process? And he goes, it's like this. He goes, if you got the biggest tree you've ever seen in your yard and you go out and you want to get rid of it, and you go out and you hit it once with an axe every day, even that tree will fall. So he says it's got to be, if you're in the writing process, it has to be, you have to do it every day. And then I look at guys like Stephen King, who's also written, obviously, a ton of books. And his rule is when he's writing a book, he's well, actually, I guess when he writes like every day, he does 10 pages. Doesn't matter what he's doing. He's got to write 10 pages a day. So 10 pages a day translate into a 300-page book in a month. So if you can do 10 pages a day, and I mean, that's for some people, that's a lot. I get that.
Mm.
But once you're what I did is I mapped out, once I decided that's what I was going to do, I mapped out every book, uh, every chapter's name. So and every theme, and I put a paragraph. So I had this long document with, basically 7 books. So I knew that I didn't want to get lost in the process. And I did a couple of times. You go off track and then you got to go back and look, oh, that's not what I'm supposed to be writing about. And then you look, okay, where should this be? And then you pick that up and you put it where it should be. But basically I mapped it all out so that I had a direction to go in and where I wanted to go. And then I started to look around at the technology of the day, thinking, what are we going to see in 100 years? What's it going to look like? And I tried to imagine that. And I don't know if I did a good job, but that was my process.
Mm.
Where are we going to be in 100 years? You look back where we were 100 years ago, and 100 years ago, nobody would tell, maybe 1 or 2 people in the whole, Nostradamus or whatever, would say this is where we're going to be today. They would never imagine it. I mean, with what's happened, even in the last 25 years for that matter. So it's kind of interesting where we'll end up in 100 years. I hope we're still here. I hope my descendants are still here, put it that way.
I love that mapping out where you might be in 100 years, that kind of future pacing.
Yeah, and then trying to, so the other thing is too, is I had to pick names for the
Mm.
books. So I thought about my grandkids and my kids, my family, and so I kind of co-opted their names into a lot of the characters,
Cool, that's cool.
so that someday they'll pick up that book and they'll know that was written with intent for them. Right? It's kind of a legacy. I hope it's readable. I don't know. The other thing too is I got audiobooks coming as well. And so what I did there is I kind of listened to some audiobooks, and it was always one male voice, one narrator. And I said to my publishing company, I can't do that. I can't have the man mansplaining the women's parts. Doesn't make sense. So we have the female and the male voice when they're appropriate in the book. So that it gives it a little bit, it sounds a little bit more like the old radio broadcast, like you'd hear in the 60s when they'd have radio story, like so I kind of like those radio broadcasts. So I thought we got to make it sound a little bit like that. Go back in time to those days when that's what people listen to on the radio every night. You know, I'm sure you've heard a few of those. If
Yeah.
not, anyways, that's where I went with that. And then I got Webtoons. You know what Webtoons is?
No.
Webtoons is the modern day comic book.
Ah, okay.
In Webtoons alone, there's 172 million subscribers, monthly subscribers, and it's an art form. It's a lot of manga. So what I did is I got the publishing company to also do a Webtoon series for my book, and I'm going to continue that.
Oh
So
wow.
that's another artistic format that I kind of like. It's interesting. So
Mm.
that should be out in a day or two, and the audiobook as well for book. So
Mm.
Webtoons is starting audiobook, kind of trying to pull it all together in a big package so that if you don't want to read the book, you can look at Webtoons. If you don't want to look at Webtoons, you can read the book, and then hopefully a movie, John. Right? That would be good. I don't know.
So
Maybe you'll have to be in it, Johnny, in the
that'd be
movie.
fun. Love that. I love all these different formats you got coming out, Norm, for these books. And yeah, Norm, I'd love to kind of talk about on that note as we kind of like wrap up today. Where is the best place? I believe maybe your website to get these books, and yeah, where's the best place for people to find you and your book and all your work you're doing?
Well, you can go to normanjnlobb.com and you can click on the link and it will take you to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. We're in just about every digital space there is. There's about 200 places you can pick up the book. But if you go to the website, you can click on the link. You can read two chapters without buying the book to see if it does interest you. And then you can buy the book and they will ship it to you. You can get it in digital form, or you can buy a soft copy or hard copy, hard covers. Uh, Amazon's probably the easiest place, but I mean that's North American more probably. So yeah, it's in England. It is in the bookstores there. At least you can order it from the bookstore, but you can order it online for sure.
Oh, amazing.
And
Sounds
the game has a website called quantumbrain.ca, but it's also on the website for the books. You can access the game through Steam.
oh incredible. A good range of resources, book and the game. So yeah, be sure to grab Norm's book in the show notes below. So we'll leave that link to the website, to all the bookstores, and also where you can get the game as well. To grab some of Norm's exciting products in the world and some of the messages that we talked about today and all the work he's doing. So yeah, Norm, thank you for coming on today. Really appreciated you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and I hope to talk to you again soon, John.
Absolutely. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.